Good evening, all. Good evening. I think it's the last track. So, sustainability is a buzzword, and this session is on sustainability. You must have heard 3R, 5R, circular economy, EPR. We will decode all these opportunities and challenges in this session way forward. Sustainability is a crucial aspect of business today. Over the last decade, social consciousness has risen among consumers. In turn, the business world has also had to place environmental and social issue higher on their corporate agenda and ponder the key question. So first of all, I will thank CII and the team of CII. My name is AJAY JHALANI. I am Director, Winner Plas into packaging, and I am also advisor to CPET India. So I would request panel to please come. I will start with Mr. Seshadri Mukundan. Mr. Seshadri Mukundan is a founder of Green Ted Packaging and Storage Solution. He has 38 years of corporate leadership and entrepreneurship global experience and worked with several top technology companies like Canon, Siemens, JV, HP India, and Singapore, AJAY Technologies, Singapore and USA. Mr. Seshadri Mukundan serves as advisory board of SIIC, SIDBI Innovation and Incubation Center located at IIT Kanpur, and also active lecturer at industries and academic institutions like CI, Chemlog, Infosys, IITs. Please welcome him. Next is Mr. Ankur Bhomik, Chief Operation Officer, MTR Foods Private Limited. Mr. Ankur Bhomik is the Chief Operation Officer at MTR Foods. He is responsible for crafting end-to-end supply chain strategies for short-term and long-term value creation and making supply chain central to business strategy through continuous cost improvements, digital transformation, better assets and cost management, and sustainability. Mr. Ankur Bhomik has 30 years of experience, 17 years in leadership position, and end-to-end supply chain and delivering results through strategic skills in manufacturing, procurement, project, S&OP, logistics, EHS, and quality assurance. He has worked with companies like JK Tyre, Dabur, Reliance Retail, MTR Foods. Mr. Ankur Bhomik graduated with a master's degree in business administration from Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi. Mr. Vaibhav Agarwal, Head Logistics Customer Service, Britannia Industries Limited. Mr. Vaibhav Agarwal is a supply chain professional with experience in all areas of operations in auto, high-tech, FMCG environment. Currently, Mr. Vaibhav Agarwal is a National Manager, Head of Logistics and Customer Service at Britannia Industries Limited. He led the implementation of TMS, WMS in Britannia, which led a lot of efficiency improvement and cost saving of over 3 crore on year. Mr. Vaibhav Agarwal has over 18 years experience in managing supply chain across planning, logistics, customer service, manufacturing, and project management, and worked with companies like Britannia, Johnson & Johnson, Mondelez, HP, and Hero Honda. Please welcome him. Mr. Vaibhav Anand, founder, CEO of Bamboo. Mr. Vaibhav Anand is the founder, CEO of Bamboo, has been torchbearer of sustainability. He has been a pivotal part of various government organizations in bringing the plastic ban into force. He has been advisor of National Bamboo Mission and part of Niti Aayog as an industry advisor as well. He and his team at Bamboo has developed numerous solutions to single-use plastic in varied applications and industries. Bamboo under him has become India's largest sustainable packaging company, running at AR of 100 crore plus. Mr. Vaibhav Agarwal has several accolades awarded by Indian and international firms, very recent being the Clean Tech Startup Award by Entrepreneur India, and also have won Circular Economy Hackathon conducted by India and Australian government jointly. Please welcome him. Mr. Pawan Gopal, Chief Marketing Officer, Nando's. Mr. Pawan Gopal is a branding, marketing, and business management professional with 19 years of experience, of which 11 are accountable for top-line growth of 2 for PLL. He is adept at translating both products and marketing ideas into sales revenue. Currently, Mr. Pawan Gopal is currently the CMO of Nando's Foods India's largest omni-channel fresh meat and ready-to-cook packaged food brand. He leads the brand growth and sales operation for Nandu's. He has held senior roles in both the agencies and brand side. He is well versed in marketing growth for the retail, CPG, FMCG, F&B, AR, VTech, real estate, aviations, manufacturing categories. Pawan is an engineer with continued experience at IIM, BA and ISB. Please welcome. Mr. Amritendu Mukherjee, General Manager Logistics, Dr. Reddy's Laboratory. Mr. Mukherjee is General Manager Logistics at Dr. Reddy's Laboratories. Mr. Amritendu Mukherjee, professional with an experience of 17 years in various roles enabling supply chain with digital tools such as ERP implementation, supply chain application development, project management, along with extensive experience of over 4 years in evaluating and reviewing companies' logistic operation. He also handled projects in and around supply chain function for both national and international distribution. Mr. Amritu Mukherjee holds degree in business management from XLRI Jamshedpur. Please welcome him. Thank you so much. Have a seat. So we have 6 leaders right now, and the theme is on sustainability. So I would request from Amritendu Mukherjee to talk on sustainability and the initiatives.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, CII, for calling here and giving this opportunity to express our views. So I represent Dr. Reddy's, and as an organization, we have taken multiple initiatives with regards to sustainability, and I think it's a public information that we have taken very stringent sustainability goals towards our forward journey till 2030. And however, considering the specific agenda of this discussion, I would try to highlight a few aspects which we are addressing in terms of packaging for sustainability, and in that regards also we are conscious and putting in our efforts in terms of reducing the usage of plastic in the packaging that we use. So as you are aware, I'm from a pharma company, and we manufacture medicines, and primarily it's a B2B segment. There the tertiary packaging that we use, or secondary packaging that we have, in that we are trying to reduce the usage of, let's say, laminated plastics. Wherever possible, we are trying to replace plastic boxes with fiber-based drums. So there is a particular component in the pharma supply chain which is called API, which is the key medicine that moves around, or which is there inside the tablets that you consume. Now those primarily are transported using plastic drums, blue-colored drums with a black cap. Normally you would have seen many places. So we have been trying to replace those with fiberboard drums. There are initiatives wherein the bottles, if you have seen, there are bottles that we supply the medicines in. Those bottles will have 2 layers of plastic covering. So we wanted to reduce a layer and all. So in general, the efforts that we are taking in terms of sustainable packing, we can claim, and I think in some CII forums of scale and all, we have already represented our organization, and we have showcased the achievements we have done. And roughly 68 to 70 tons of plastic usage on an annualized basis we have been able to reduce with the efforts from our packaging team in this regards. It is one of the facets which I am trying to highlight now. Apart from that, also there are multiple ways in which we do work for sustainability. However, from packaging point of view, what we are trying to focus is the concept of circular economy, that from the design perspective itself, if you can consider that what would happen to this particular covering. It's basically not the product, it is just the packaging in which the actual product is served. So how minimum we can do it is also where we try to reduce the size of the bottles in which the medicines are going, so that it unnecessarily, if we can reduce some, that is the amount of damage we can hold up to. So those are certain conscious efforts we are making. Those are not very drastic. We are taking a phased approach in terms of taking certain sections, trying to work on them. There are certain aspects with regards to tertiary packaging also we have taken, where the wrapping on the tertiary boxes, when they are palletized and sent across for exports and all, we are trying to work with different types of materials. Those are the certain aspects we are trying to look into. So yes, we are walking the path of sustainability. We are walking the path of sustainability with regards to packaging and trying to take certain steps. Might be small, might be steady, but we continue to do the same.
Thank you, Amritandu. I will request Mr. Mukundan.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thanks to CII and to our chair for the opportunity to share my perspective on sustainability. I think it's very timely that we are talking about this. Whenever we see climate change, any of those kinds of natural things happening, I think this becomes a topic of discussion and then we immediately forget. I think we are in a time when e-commerce packaging, particularly, is booming. Most of us who are used to going to a shop is ordering things on e-commerce platforms. Obviously, we receive them at home. And so there is a whole bunch of packaging-related activity that is going on behind our scene before we get a product. Why sustainability is important? Obviously, nature has only limited resources. We can't keep on extracting the resource and think that we are in a better world. So, long story short, I think sustainability is a very, very timely topic, particularly in the context of e-commerce packaging. There are a couple of stories that you might have heard. Like in China, they started killing birds because they felt that the birds were eating the food grain. But then when the birds were killed, they realized that the insects started growing, and the next 3 years there was famine. So whenever we do anything against nature, obviously the nature teaches us a lesson back in terms of why we should not be doing that. I think sustainability topic is something that the same logic applies, whereby if we continue to extract, if we continue to abuse, I think we are going to pay the price very heavily. Now, what am I doing as far as sustainability is concerned? I co-founded a company called Flexol Packaging in 2010. We focused on returnable logistics. One of the things that happen is that packaging material, most of the time, 80% of the time, it lands up from point A to point B, and then it kind of gets lost there. There is no retrievability of that packaging material for its reuse. Even though we say we carton box, we recycle and all that, the cost of doing that and the environment damage that we do in some of these cases is not measured. So obviously, we think that we are doing a good job, but then at the end of the day, we are not. So when we co-founded Flexol about 13 years ago, which eventually got sold to the platinum sponsors TVS, we focused on how do we retrieve a packing material when it goes from point A to point B, and then at the most environment-friendly manner, how do we get it back to another customer from point B to point C, and then again back to C to A, that kind of stuff. So we managed at one point of time about 800,000 assets. And eventually when the company was sold, I still had this nudging thing in my mind, saying that even though we called everything green, was it really green? Particularly in the context of e-commerce. I find e-commerce packets lying all around everywhere, railway station, airport, any of these places, they get transported by bus, they get transported by truck. There is either over-engineering done in it or there is under-engineering done in it. Particularly, I see that there is a small, chairman was saying about a small shampoo bottle that he got, but then the packaging was 5 times bigger than the shampoo bottle. Now, what are we doing? We are actually shipping space, as well as we are contributing multiple ways by which we are harming the environment. There will be chips to protect it. That box goes to his house, never gets retrieved, and then he probably throws it in the bin, and then it gets either burnt as a fuel, or sometimes, occasionally, it gets recycled. So, kind of embarked on a mission to create a chemical-free, zero-waste packaging product. I have a few samples with me. I will show it to you, to the people who are interested. You will see that these are made from natural fibers. When I mean natural fiber, it is either a coconut fiber or a banana fiber. Of course, there are many things like bamboo fiber and all that. But then we focused on coconut and banana. And then we also focused on making sure that there is zero chemical in the process or in the product. Now, common question comes in is that how do you bind these fibers? We use latex or we use glue from plants like guava and papaya so that they become strong. So long story short, the contribution that we wanted to do to the packaging industry was to develop a product that is truly sustainable, that is truly zero waste, because after about 2-3 years of use, if this product is not useful anymore, we just crush it and then mix it back to the same. So that is the contribution which I'll stop here. Okay? Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mukundan. I will request Mr. Ankur to have his thoughts on sustainable packaging.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Mukundan, and thank you, Mr. Jalani. Yeah, I come from MTR Foods. It's the company is, which is based out of Norway today, and we have also one more stake today, one more entity, which is Eastern in Kerala. So before we talk about sustainable packaging, so you know that I come from packaged food company, and before we talk about sustainable packaging, I would like to talk about a pragmatic solution that we need to have towards it. And the first thing is about we need to know what is packaging. And when we talk about packaging, we always talk about packaging is about paper products, which is going to be the master carton, the outer carton part of it, which could be secondary packaging or tertiary packaging. It could be mono cartons, lined cartons, which is again paper-based. And then you have got various rigid plastics and rigid products. It could be tin, aluminum, copper, whatever you talk about. And then comes to rigid plastics when you talk about PET, HDP. Now, then the biggest element is flexible packaging. Now, if you really look at the growth of packaged foods in India or globally, it has happened because of flexible packaging. This is the cheapest source, and this is the cheapest mode and cheapest cost through which you can deliver your products, packaged products to consumers, which may not cost more than 3 to 5% of the total what you pay for a product. And also, if you really look at globally, what we really see that the data really shows that sustainable packaging, as far as your flexible packaging is concerned, is growing double the growth of normal packaging, which is not sustainable. Which means that it's not only sustainable packaging, growth for normal packaging is also growing. Now, why it is happening so? What is the challenge that we have? The biggest challenge for flexible packagings today is about collection. It is, when you talk about rigid plastics, you still find somebody can still pick it up and monetize that. What cannot be monetized because it cannot be recycled is about flexible packaging. And also we need to understand that when globally it is growing in a developing country that is going to grow, I do not see that in next 2 years we will move everything to sustainable packaging, or growth of normal packaging will not increase. You know, there is a study which said that as far as technology development is concerned, you always overestimate what is going to happen in 2 years' time, but you always underestimate what is going to happen in 10 years' time. We know this is a big problem we have, and therefore we need to find a solution for sustainable packaging. And every company is working towards it. And for us, the approach is about what people talk about 3R, 4R, 5R, 6R. So we say the first thing is about being conscious about the whole thing is about reduce. Now you talked about shampoo. You have only 30% and 70% is, it is only air. So you are shipping air and you're shipping plastics. And so the first thing what we have done in last 5 years as a company, we started looking at 2 aspects. One is, can we reduce height, to the maximum possible? I need to give some head space for me to, seal the product, pack. So, and the second thing what we really looked at, can I really reduce the thickness? Do I really reduce? And the moment I do both, what we do, we reduce our plastic consumption. And I can tell you last 5 years with that only intent of reduce, we reduce our plastic by 20%. Of course, Before reduce, it was about EPR, that employer producer responsibility, which government wanted everyone, whatever they generate, you collect the same plastics. We didn't wait for 3 years. In the first year, we generated whatever we generate, we started collecting those plastics. The first is we collect plastics. Second, we reduce plastics. And third, then you talk about how do you use plastics which you can recycle. We started the process, because as we believe that the whole replacement cannot happen over a period of 2 years. But we are conscious about moving, and we have our 2030 aspiration where we want to get into sustainable. It's not about sustainable packaging. We are actually talking about how by next 7 to 8 years we reduce carbon emission, we reduce we reduce packaging, or about sourcing. We have a target to reduce and see that we are responsible. Today, each and every company will have to be responsible. The last thing what we are doing today, I think I'll talk about this later, is about how to generate more consciousness and awareness as far as consumers are concerned and other stakeholders are concerned. Just to make it short, sum up, growth of normal packaging which is not sustainable is going to grow, but at the same time, every company like us, which we are taking a step to move into sustainable packaging, and how we are moving into sustainable packaging, which we call in technical term is a mono-material. If you have a family of material, group of material, then only recycling is possible. We started working on developing those material. We are also looking at the machinability of those materials. We are working towards it, and we have a plan to phase out and get into sustainable packaging over a period of, I don't know today, but over a period of maybe 3 years, 5 years, 7 years time. And that's the first step that we are taking to be a more conscious and responsible corporate. Yeah, so I'll end here. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Ankur. Now request Mr. Vaibhav to have his thought process.
Thank you, Ajay. First of all, thank you, CII, for giving me this opportunity to speak at such a forum. So, I represent Britannia. Let me tell you what I think about sustainability. So, I think sustainability, though Mr. Mukundan said that we are at the right time, but according to me, we are already too much delayed. Right? We see a lot of changes happening in environment. The cycles of the summer cycle, winter cycle, rainy cycle has changed. We already see a lot of change happening in a lot of tornadoes, there are a lot of cyclones, there are a lot of tsunamis that we already see happening, and it is all fallout of what we have done to the nature. So we are already very late in terms of sustainability or environmental awareness that we should have shown probably 10 years, 15 years back. But nevertheless, we have to start thinking about it now. So sustainability is something which is just not a buzzword, but we need to start thinking about it very seriously right now. Having said that, a lot of things, and I will say that everything, the Rome cannot be made in one day, right? It has to be a journey. So we have to do that journey step by step, and there has to be a collaboration with government policies, how companies are thinking, how consumers are thinking, and everybody has to come together and do that journey together. Right now, I see a lot of government policies are being enforced to companies like us, and then we start thinking towards it. So I guess that will continue to happen, but at the same time, companies should start thinking on themselves, on what is that they need to do. So for example, in sustainability, we talk about a lot of renewable energy. It's nothing to do with packaging, but a lot of renewable energy is being used in a lot of Britannia right now. So almost 80% of the electricity that we use comes from renewable resources. And we have around 70 plants across the country. And I'm very proud to say that 80% of the electricity that we use comes from renewable resources. Secondly, the amount of energy that you spend in doing that packaging is also very important, right? So hence this becomes a part of packaging only. Secondly, what you have to do, as Ankur has rightly said, that we need to see how can we reduce the parts, the components of packaging where plastics are used. So for example, I don't know whether you guys would recollect, there used to be a plastic tray that used to come in the biscuits. Nowadays, you will not see that tray in Britannia biscuits. Very, very few products will have that tray, which are very, very fragile in nature. Otherwise, in 90% of the products, that tray has been removed. We have removed that tray. So we have reduced plastic. Similarly, we keep on identifying which are the elements of the packaging that you can completely remove and keep removing those parts. Secondly, what we also do is how can you change the form of packaging? For example, if you are using lamps, can you use something else instead of lamps so that the plastic, the amount of plastic that you're generating is less. So can we use papers? Can we use different papers? And I guess Vaibhav is going to talk about those papers now. So we are in talks with startups like his and see how can we reduce the usage of plastic in our entire packaging. So this is what we are doing. And talking about e-commerce packaging, I guess as a consumer also I'm a little worried because when I order from companies like Amazon and Flipkart, I see they're totally packed by a lot of plastics and paper cartons which are of no use to me at the end of it. So I am worried because all of it is coming from the environment only. So how can we reduce over packaging of these companies, especially e-commerce companies, which also worries me a lot because companies like us have started focusing on sustainable packaging, but these e-commerce companies should also start looking at it differently and then say, how can I reduce the packaging of the goods that I deliver? So, I mean, if all of us start thinking, if consumer starts thinking, consumer starts, so I used to order from Milk Basket. Milk Basket used to deliver me in a blue color plastic every day. And they used to collect it back at every, so I don't know how many of you use Milk Basket, but they used to collect it back. After 7-8 days, I used to give them back. I don't know what they used to do, but they said that they're recycling it. So I believe on them. So something like that can also be done by Flipkarts and the Amazons of the world who can collect back all these and reuse this secondary packaging. I mean, Mr. Mukundan has a very interesting repackaging solution which can be reused. And we will also like to explore, sir. So that is something which we should all think and look at and then explore. And that's what my bit is.
Thanks, Vaibhav. Now, over to Mr. Vaibhav.
Thank you. Thank you, CII, for having me here and giving me this opportunity to speak alongside my esteemed panelist. I might not share the kind of experience all my panels have, but whatever I can contribute. Well, if you see the data, we consume roughly 140 million tons of single-use plastic every year. That's a humongous amount of plastic that we are generating and using and wasting. We, single-use plastic by the name or by the definition itself, why it is called single-use plastic is because it cannot be recycled at all. And this goes for landfill and converts later into microplastic, which is found in your human blood or any other parts of the consumption as well. So what I feel is we should be looking at replacing the material itself because, and I know that it cannot be done overnight. It has to be in a phased manner. It has to be gradual in process. So I believe that we should look for alternate materials which are sustainable in nature. And sustainable is a very subjective word. It cannot be defined objectively that, okay, I'm doing this while be sustainable. But how can we, as Vaibhav and Ankur and everybody said, that, you know, how can we reduce the usage? That's first thing that we should look at. And secondly, what alternate materials that we can work upon, which basically does not hamper the environment at large. That's what we should look at. Talking about bit of Bamboo, what we are doing is we are trying to replace single-use plastic with whatever alternate materials that we are developing internally. And proud to say we have 5 patents to us now, and we have developed materials which could replace single-use plastic as it is with the specifications, with the kind of application it has. So in pharmaceutical industry, we work with one of the largest, world's largest capsule manufacturing company. And even in consumer space, in the CPG space, we are working with one of the very large company where we are replacing the primary packaging of what you consume every day, the atta packaging, the confectionery packaging, even the biscuits packaging. So we have come up with these solutions which could replace single-use plastic. Talking about the monomer, what Ankur said, even if we develop monomer, it has to has certain thickness for it to be recycled. If you see the global data, 91% of the single-use plastic, whether it's polymer or a monomer, cannot be recycled. Each time you have to recycle, even a plastic today which is recyclable, it cannot be recycled more than 4 times. You have to use virgin plastic. So what we need to think as a consumer as well and as businesses as well, that we always think that, okay, if somebody will do it, then I will do it. Nobody's ready to take that leap of faith that, okay, I can lead the space. I think some of the customers that we work with, they have taken this step. Like, the team is here. Amazon has taken that step in the e-commerce space to, fully replace single-use plastic into the supply chain. And through them, we have learned a lot as well. But having said so, what I try to say here is that, like Amazon, there could be multiple companies like Mondelez or Britannia or anybody for that matter can come forward and, try that out, that, it is possible. There is nothing impossible. It is definitely possible to replace single-use plastics. It's just that leap of faith which is required. And trust me, the cost also is at par with single-use plastic today, what we have achieved. And at some places, it is even cheaper, right? So government has mandated 120 microns to be used and above. If you see at that price, the product that we are developing right now is roughly around 60% cheaper. It makes no-brainer for anybody to move into sustainability even today. So I think reduction of the usage of the packaging is also very important and critical. As we are shipping it, that's very important. We need to optimize our packaging very, very clearly. Reusability, again, it's a very important factor for us to look upon. What Mr. Mukundan is doing is great. I think we should definitely look forward to that. Obviously, the cost structure has to be worked upon, but I think sustainability is something which has to be adopted, and it is related to a lot about the consumer behavior as well, and which will take its own time to change. It cannot happen overnight, but we all industry leaders have to think over it and start working on developing an alternate in that space. So that's from my end. Thank you.
Thanks, Weber. Pawan, what is your thought process for,
Thank you.
as per your organization, on sustainable packaging?
Lots of things. There's an advantage in speaking towards the end, so you get to listen. So, good afternoon, everyone. And I thank CII and the chair, Mr. AJAY, as well as all the panelists here. So we've been having a couple of conversations much before we sat on this chair. So it's very nice to see people talk about sustainability. I think as leaders, we need to lead with our own personal ethos and values too when we're trying to change this, because once you go back to the corporate world, your CFO is waiting for you, So there is, sustainability is definitely a need. There was a very interesting quote that I'd read some time ago, and that was when it sort of put a lot of words into the thought in my mind. Not to quote it verbatim, but the planet is not something that we have inherited from our forefathers. It is something that we have borrowed from our future generations. So I think sustainability is not just the need of the hour, like how Vibha was saying, we are in it a little too late to begin with, but let's try and look at what we can do in terms of trying to make the most of it. And there's definitely a lot of scope. The fact in terms of innovation that Brambrew is doing, or something which may sound very simple, but so exceptionally important is when Britannia removed that plastic tray from the millions and millions of packets of biscuits that are getting shipped out, to what Mr. Mukundan is doing in terms of bringing back the packaging, having an alternate material as a solution, what Dr. Reddy's are doing in terms of, the pellets and the big thing, or what Ankur and team are doing at MTR in terms of monomers. So that it's good to see that there is a lot happening. Nandu's is the organization that I'm with. We are actually farmers. Okay, we farm poultry. We've been doing that for the past 60 years. And unlike everybody else, we have our own stores too. So the produce that we grow at our farms is what we sell to our consumers. So that's about the business, but the business that we are in is highly perishable and it's food. And if you look at FMCG, bulk of the FMCG companies are actually in food FMCG. And like Ankur was mentioning, the growth and the rise and the need for flexible packaging is just gone up like crazy. And that is where we aren't really finding sustainable solutions. Folks like Vaibhav here from Bamboo are working on it. There is a lot of optimism. There is a lot of things that are happening. Personally, I've been on the lookout for the past 3 years to see what we can change. Okay, how can we adopt something which is a little more sustainable? And sustainability, like a lot of my colleagues here have spoken, is various different things, 3 hours, 5 hours, or whatever we look at it. One, there is a need for different material and the investment which needs to go in over there. The second thing, I think, where we began as Nandu's in terms of sustainability as far as packaging is concerned, is we sort of looked at removing the excess packaging that we were already using. I think it began with that first step. You would have, one primary packaging in which the meat is vacuum packed. You'd put up into a cardboard box, which then would get delivered in another paper bag. Absolutely useless. It's not serving any purpose to anybody. You're just using a lot more material. Okay, probably paper is recyclable, but why are you using so much of material to begin with? It's not serving any purpose. And it's such a commodity, end of the day, meat, that nobody is going to look at that packaging. It's not like a luxury product that you want to own, right? The moment it comes home, the ones who cook at home or the maid at home who's going to cook at it is just going to cut open and throw the rest of the things out. In fact, once or twice, post-COVID, when I went out to deliver, along with the deliver boys, a lot of these packaging that we were spending, forget the money, the amount of material that was getting consumed, they would take the delivery at the doorstep. Because of fear of COVID, they would throw the damn thing outside. It was not going anywhere. It was just going into dump. So the first step that we took was saying, let's not use packaging which is not going to add any value in the supply chain or in the consumer life cycle journey. Right? We've been on the lookout for a lot of sustainability options. We, as an organization, believe in sustainability a lot, both economic as well as environmental, because today I think the topic is more environmental. And apart from that, there's a lot that we are also trying to do in terms of creating awareness amongst the stakeholders that we work with, including the consumers. More to talk about as the conversation carries along. But thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Ankur. So I will just have a small point, at the individual level, at the corporate level, even at the government level, this thing has started. Anything you are going to import from any part of the world, so you have to take the Central Pollution Board approval, a license, then only you can import. So like suppose in case someone has imported plastic pallets, so whatever that wrapping on the plastic pallet, it has to be disclosed to Central Pollution Board, and then it will go through that EPR process. So the whole thought process from corporate level to individual level, even government is also interfering on sustainability. That's point number one. Point number two, even big corporates, whatever their plastic waste, they are also trying to do a recycling of it. If they have old crates, they're trying to make it some other components which can use in CSR. So that also has started. A lot of packaging or old crates or old boxes are there. they're sending it to the recyclers, and that's the same product which can be used. Like there are a lot of companies who have managing a lot of villages, so they send across those trays or chairs. So these are things happening. So I think this movement has started, and I think individually, corporate, even government level, so we are moving ahead. This is my take. Now, on second, I would request Vaibhav to just talk on biodegradable and composite packaging material.
Thank you, Ajay. Well, I would like to ask you all a question. I'm sure people here would have had tea or coffee through the paper cups. But do you realize that, how many of you know that that's not a paper cup? Very few hands, right? So these are all coated with single-use plastics internally. And sorry to say, but these are non-recyclable as well, right? So we have a pseudo happy feeling that, okay, we are using a paper cup instead of a plastic cup and we are adding to the environment, but that's not the case here. Well, what Mr. Ajay has asked me to talk about is, there's a lot of greenwashing or hogwashing going around in the market today. Biggest of the quick commerce companies are using this. And I don't tell them that they're using it with the knowledge, but because they're not aware. So when you see a compostable, it's actually not biodegradable. So there are two types of compostability that we should be very well aware of. One is home compostability and another is industrial compostability. So people generally write compostable and then they leave you hanging and thinking that whether it's home compostable or industrial compostable. Unfortunately, many companies in India are using this and hiding behind this compostable tag, despite making a product which is industrial compostable. Now, we need to understand what happens with an industrially compostable product. Unfortunately, not only India, any developed country or developing country or Asian countries or Western countries, we do not have an industrial composting facility. So even if we have developed an industrial compostable product, we cannot decompose it anywhere because we don't have a facility. The problem does not end there. The second problem is it looks like plastic. So a rack picker who is doing this segregation is not literate enough to differentiate between a plastic and an industrial compostable grade plastic so that it can segregate that and it can go to a composting facility, right? On the contrary, on the other hand, what we have is a home compostable product, which means that it can decompose under natural conditions without having any special conditions for it to degrade, and it turns into manure, right? So I think what we should, as you already would have seen multiple news around Cadbury's, Bonvita, I think we should start looking at what is the material is made of. Are they really impacting the environment in a better way or not? If not, then just refuse it. I think as consumers, we need to raise this voice because a lot of industries, a lot of businesses are hiding behind this compostable tag, right? So the industrial compostable and home compostable, those are very, very two different things. And industrial compostable grade is as good as plastic if we are not segregating it, if we are not putting it under industrial composting facility. So I think that's something which has people need to be aware of, and this has to be mandated into the industries. I think BIS has recently given a comment on this industrial composting grade, and a lot of Karnataka has already banned. Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Maharashtra, all these states have banned industrial compostable grade, and there is a note from these institutions. So, but we are still using it. So I think that we should not have a pseudo happy feeling that we are using an industrial compostable grade product, which is not good for the environment in any way, other than, it's as good as plastic today. So That's it.
Thanks.
Vaibhav, I have a question. So, a lot of us will not be able to differentiate between what is the industrial compostable plastic and what's the home compostable. So, is there a way, a mechanism, how can we differentiate between the two? So, if I am, as a consumer, if I go to the market and buy a product, and if I want to promote a product which is more home compostable than an industrial compostable, how do I differentiate what packaging is it and how do I know?
No, I mean, it's a great question. Nobody would know or would be able to differentiate. So we are working with BIS and we are working with the government of India to actually develop a mark, like you have a silk mark or you have a wool mark. So we are developing a mark which we have proposed to them to have it for the home compostable and industrial compost. So we already have a mark which is being used globally, which is OK Compost mark that you would see, which is given by the TUV Austria. However, India, we do not have any authorizing entity which can give those certifications or those hallmarks. So we are proposing that we should have it in India as well. But as a consumer, what you can look at is, I can share that mark, I can't draw it, but there is a OK Compost mark which is available, which is given by TUV, which is a world, very well-known, certifying company. Right? So that's OK Compost will be written with a green color leaf mark will be there. So that way you can identify whether it's a home compostable product or an industrial compostable product.
Thank you. I think this is a great task for Vaibhav and the government of India. I think they should come out with this type of sustainable packaging. So now my next question to Mr. Mukundan is, give us your thought on retail packaging. How green is e-commerce? Something on pooling and...
Yeah. Before I answer this question, I just want to roll back. I'm about 60 years now. When I was a 10-year-old boy, my parents used to consume beetle leaves and chunnam. So when we go and ask for chunnam in a shop, they will actually put the chunnam on the beetle leaf and then give it to us. The same is true for pickle. We never had bottled pickles at that time. I'm talking about one generation before, so I don't know how many of you can relate to what I'm saying. We find bottles of plastic in front of you, right in front of you. But then when we used to travel by train, we used to carry a water bottle, and then every station we used to fill it up. That used to be the task of all the young guys in the family. Now, why I'm saying all this is, we all started like that. Banana leaf was the only plate that I have ever eaten until at least my 16 years. But then we have moved over from there, plastic plates, plastic containers, all of that. I believe in the 60-year cycle. In the Tamil calendar, always talks about every 60 years, the person born on that has the same horoscope as the person who was born 60 years ago. So I think the same thing is coming back now, where we are taking our containers to the hotel to bring back food, and then chunnam went into plastic bottle. But then now I saw that there was a shop which was selling, and then they said, no, we don't have plastic bottle. We only can give you in a paper. And then the same thing was true for cigarette smokers. I don't know how many of you are here. Then there never used to be a matchbox. The shop always had a rope, a coconut rope. And then there was always fire in that. Anyone coming and lighting a BD, a cigarette, will have to use that. Why I'm saying all this in the context of how green is e-commerce. Now today I see that we are not green as far as e-commerce is concerned. But my biggest hope is that, like the 60-year cycle, we will go back. And nature will tell us that it is no good using all this. I was very happy to see that in Kerala, they even pack sambar in banana leaf. Now, nature has given us this. A lot of people will say, how can banana leaf hold a liquid? But then this guy is able to put it on fire and then make it a little flexible. And there's a lot of YouTube channels you will probably see. Now, going back to answering the question straight, I think there is a lot of scope to improve because e-commerce is the way to go forward. I don't believe given the traffic conditions of India, given the kind of time availability, all of that, I think going back to the old age of going to a store, buying, using reusable container is not going to happen that quickly. There will be pockets of excellence that will happen. For example, hotel. A lot of people I see, they carry their own containers to bring back food. So those are pockets of excellence. But then on the general note, e-commerce will continue to grow. People will order online. People will get delivery at home. But then, is it green today? I think probably 5% is green today, but there is 95%. I see that more as an opportunity for the industry to raise up and then see how they can introduce returnable packaging so that an e-commerce company ships something from point A to point B, and last mile delivery, somebody carries it, but then he's able to carry back the packing container so that only the goods that were ordered gets delivered. So if that can happen, I think then we can truly call e-commerce delivery or packaging to be green. Till then, I think we are going to have a lot of opportunity to improve.
Okay, thanks. Now, one more point we will discuss. How do we educate our stakeholders? And stakeholders is ready to share the cost. So I would request Ankurji to have thought process.
Yeah, I think first I must accept that whenever I come here and, I come here to talk as an expert, and most of the time I've seen that I become a student because Vaibhav, Anant, what you really spoke about, something as a great learning for all of us, because I'm taking back to see that how we can become more responsible, and I want to touch base with you. Because that's the beauty of, I think, this all forum, like you sitting out here learning so much, and we are sitting here also learning so much about what's happening in the area that we think we know so much. One thing is, when you talk about I just forgot the question. One is the sharing cost, because that's what the CFO will always push me for the cost. And second thing you talked about, how do we educate our stakeholders? I think it's important, and again, I talked about one thing, is that we always, when you talk about sustainable packaging, there are a lot of noise. We always talk about responsibility. We talk about e-commerce growing at a pace where, packaging is not green. So you see different data points, where sometimes you say that the future is bleak, and sometimes you see that the future is bright because a lot of noise going on, and pockets of excellence that you see. To me, everything has to go parallel. Convenient solution has to come, people don't have time. And therefore, our requirement of packaging is going to go up. A second, what is the biggest pain points that we have that we need to know? And our biggest pain points, if I really look at two things. One is, how do I really collect those plastics? Second, how do we really reduce those plastics? And Mukundan already spoke about that. It's a returnable. It's all about what people talk about reuse. So, and third thing is about, is that do we have alternate material? And which Vaibhav talked about, yes, there is a possibility. But today, to achieve the scale is going to take some time. Then how do you do it? Who all should be responsible for that? And I just tell you that, before this session, I was sharing my thought about the split behavior we as a consumer, we always do. And I said, in fact, it happens with me also, that when we go to a place where we know that the person is going to charge 20 rupees for a bag, forget about plastic bag, we always carry our own bag. But when you go to push cart guy and want to pick up 2 or 3 items, we say that you give me in poly bag, if you have poly bag, you give me, otherwise I'm going to pick up. And the push cart guy still carries a poly bag. And that's the mindset that we have. The first, therefore, is the education that we need to have. And I tell you, there are a lot of NGOs, they're working on this, educating everyone through gamification, through other means, to really tell them that plastic is not good. Because that first push has to come, the demand has to come from consumer. And when consumers, their behavior is constant uniform, that's the time you see the change is going to happen. Believe me, consumers will always push. That's the first thing. The demand has to come from there, and they will have to be educated. And there are ways the education has to come. First is about younger generation and start with schools. Today, there are a lot more NGOs, and it's happening also in Karnataka, in different states, where education is given to the students not to use plastics. And also, they are incentivized that if plastics are not used, even the water bottle or a tiffin box, everything which is happening is a good. That one step. Second step is what government is doing. What kind of incentive, what kind of policy making government can have. And third, how corporates can really become more responsible and take a bolder step of sharing the cost that we talked about. Cost will have to be shared because you always know that in end of the day, everyone will really look at the margin. What is the margin that you make end of the day? But I would always say that when we have to be sustainable, because there is no second question that we can delay the whole project. We can pace it probably, and therefore corporates they're working on, and that's what I think Vaibhav spoke about, that which Ashirvad has launched really, talked about getting into alternate material, and every company corporate should take a step towards sustainability. So to me, it's an education to consumer, change of behavior by consumer, policy making and incentive by government, different stakeholders working together, corporates taking a step and pace up the change of packaging materials and becoming more sustainable over a period of time. That's the way it's going to happen. I really look at always the future is positive, because I can tell you that each week, at least there is not even, probably I'll have 1 or 2 sessions where we talk about sustainability. Because sustainability is today central to any strategy that we make, because there is no escape to that. So the noise has to continue, corporate has to really work towards it, and consumer awareness program should be accelerated.
Absolutely. Thanks. Ankur?
Ankur, do you really think that, and I mean, I'm just asking, it can be completely haywire, but do you really think that as a concept, consumer has yet to get educated about sustainability? Because personally, my feeling is that as a consumer, I guess there is a lot of buying. But where we are failing is, one, obviously the cost. Because right now, since it is not mass produced, the cost of sustainable packaging, at times we see it's little higher. And probably consumer is not ready to pay for it. But as a concept they buy it, yeah, environment सब अच्छा होना चाहिए, ये वो सब. But क्या उसके लिए मेरे को 2 रुपए एक्स्ट्रा देने पड़ेंगे तो क्या मैं तैयार हूँ? बोले यार, मतलब when it really comes to taking money out of the pocket and give it for that sustainability, in Europe and all, you still see that this is happening. But in India, it's such a big price-sensitive market, I really don't see that happening. So one is that. Second is somewhere as a companies, as manufacturers, we are also getting into this entire circle of what is the payback period? Should I try it? And that's probably where companies like Vaibhav's are struggling, because they have to pitch again and again and again to companies like us, and then we get into, okay, let me see what can. So there is some kind of hesitance from our side, probably because consumer is not ready to pay for it. So we are also saying that our margins will get logged, will not get logged, will reduce, and hence we are probably also a little hesitant there. Now what I see is that, so for example, taking example of auto industry. So we moved from BS4 to BS5 to BS6, now it's BS7. Now every time a BS changes, the price of the vehicle substantially increases, right? Now finally, if BS7 is the standard, every company will have to make that BS7, right? And if every company is making BS7, every company's prices are going up. Now consumer does not have a choice of buying a BS6 when BS7 is the standard. So they have to pay that extra price. There is no choice in the market. And hence, I feel the role of government becomes very, very, very important. And so when government made a mandate of moving from paper straws to plastic straws, everyone changed, right? Nobody thought about what money gonna spend and all that. When government banned plastics as single-use plastics as a a thali or वो सब ban किया था, everyone moved. Nobody thought about money, and even consumers were okay. When and plastics were banned, all retail industry started giving that paper bags and started charging 5 rupees, 10 rupees. Nowadays, तो 30 rupees तक charge कर रहे हैं, कुछ भी हो रहा है. But all that has become a deterrent. Now we have started carrying our own bags from home and then say, why should I spend that 30 rupees? Let me carry my own bag. When I go to Spar every day, not every day, but every week, I carry my own bag. Previously, I didn't. Previously, they used to give me a bag, plastic bag, and I was very happy about it. But the consumer behavior will change, but it has to be driven primarily from the government is what my this thing is. But as a concept, I think all the consumers have already bought it because they think about their children and then they say कि sustainability होनी चाहिए और मैं नहीं करूँगा, बाकी सबको करना चाहिए, right?
I agree what you said, and that's what I talked about, that we need to have 3-4 things together. You can't have only one, and it's just not going to happen. Therefore, I said that it's just not going to happen in 2 years' time. And what I read about technology is that you underestimate what's going to happen 10 years down the line. So the point that I was talking about is that packaged food, when you really look at the per pack cost, average cost could be 10 rupees to 20 rupees. But also these packaged foods also for a company, which could be 80 rupee that pack. What I'm saying is that suddenly government is probably not trying to put a policy where overall inflationary environment is what is going to hurt probably people who are at the bottom of the pyramid. And therefore, there are 3-4 steps we need to have. First, education to more and more people, because we live in metro, we live in Bangalore or Bombay or Delhi, the people, but there are close to 1 billion people that's living in town and your tier 2 and tier 2 cities. The behavior for them is completely different. We need to start educating them. Second, what I was talking about is that companies can probably look at those higher packs where they're probably the consumers probably willing to pay. But the smaller packs one, yes, I agree. The government also should start looking at that. Is what the policy making was talking about. I mean, exactly, you just actually dissected it, but that's what I was talking about, that we need to have 3-4 things going together and alternate materials, and that could be the answer. There is no one answer to it. But overall, when 4-5 things going in tandem, I'm sure 7-8 years down the line, I think we will have different problems to deal with, but this packaging problem will probably be solved.
So what, now I'm just, sometimes deterrent also really work. Now I stay in Mumbai, Bombay-Pune highway. Everyone knows Mr. Gadkari was keep telling from last 5 years, please don't do overspeeding. The day RTO has started fining 2,000 rupees, friends, from 200 cars, it has come to only 2 cars which are doing overspeeding. So sometimes, government has to come with certain regulation, because from 10 years, we as an NGO also, we keep going and saying, don't do overspeeding, so many accidents. But the day 2,000 rupees fine, which pinches everyone, then everyone start, going with the same toe. So I think what we were discussing, I think education, spreading, new alternative, but the day government has to come out with certain guideline, well, look, this should be the external packaging. Whether that external box which the retailer is sending, it can be through a regrind process, or it can be through cellulose, it can be through, bamboos. But certain guideline they will give, then the movement will start. That is my thought process.
I think, sorry, I'll just add it here. If you really look at, the government is doing it. If you really look at last 5-7 years, I was in one of the CII committee earlier when we were working on EPR. The first step was EPR. What you generate, you collect, and you dispose of. Second thing, you talk about single-use plastic bag. So, and I'm sure a couple of years down the line, you will have one more. So, government is doing in tranches. They know that one day they cannot ban it, because alternate mechanism will have to be developed, and you need to give time to develop that. So one angle is just still happening. Therefore I say I really see the future is bright.
So on EPR, I have already said, 4-5 years ago it was already decided. but still it was not happening. Suddenly from 1st April, any imports, you cannot, custom is not going to clear till you are not going to get Central Pollution Board one ad hoc number, and you have to do a disclosure that in whatever import you are doing, this packaging is there and it is going to go through EPR route. So that deterrent has changed, and now everyone is going through the same line. So, yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I think we have to excuse our panelist, Mr. Mukherjee. Yeah. He has a flight, so please excuse. Thank you so much. Thank you. A round up. Yeah, okay. Mr. Mukherjee, just for a group photo. We'll just take question answers up because he is leaving. We'll take a group photo and then we'll take question answers. So, open to.
Before that,
Sorry.
Ajay, I would like to add, and I second your thought, Ankur, on the government part, that if you see the ban has happened, so there are 3 levels of packaging, which is primary, secondary, and tertiary. So the secondary and the tertiary ban has already come in place where we cannot, that has come in effect in July and then in January this year. So I believe what Vaibhav is trying to say is there's a lot of government push required. But at the same time, we as a consumer should always also think about it. Like we can't really blame everything on the government and say that jab tak government nahi karegi, tab tak I'm not doing. I think that's not the way to look at it. Secondly, price sensitive. Do you know India is the largest consumer of iPhones in the world? That's very contrary to the price sensitiveness that we just spoke about. So India has got a lot of disposable income. It's not that we do not. Secondly, what we also need to do as a brand is A/B testing, which is what we learn in our MBAs. So have we tried giving, let's say, 10% of my entire packaging in sustainable packaging and increase that to, let's say, 2 rupees or 5 rupees and see what is the response from the consumer? Those are the steps that we need to take as an organization. If you remember, like in my childhood, I used to have the cola drink at 5 rupees for a bottle. Today, the same bottle costs me 20 rupees or 10, 15 rupees at least, right? So the cost has gone up, right? So, and people have readily accepted it and paying for it. It is not that. So I think it's the gradual process. We'll have to start pushing in something and see. Nobody would mind paying 2 to 5 rupee extra for the product that they're consuming because they're loyal to the product quality is good. The quality is what matters today. So many stores have come up with organics and something. Why? You have an option to buy a tomato in the local push cart at 15 rupee, but you still prefer to buy from an organic store at 20, 25 rupee. I'm saying that it cannot be 50 rupee versus 10 rupee, but the substantial, the change that can be there is, let's say, from 10 rupee to 12 rupee. That's the change I think people would not mind paying for it. We need to try, we need to test that out in the market with the consumers. I think consumers are willing to pay. As I mentioned, there's a McKinsey report 2021, which says that India is leading the sustainability space. They are willing to pay more than any other country. Not even USA was on the 3rd number, China was on the 4th number, Europe on the 2nd. So we are ahead of Europe in willingness to pay more for a sustainable product as compared to anybody else. So I think it's the time that we need to take that leap of faith is what I keep on talking about. Try out with, let's say, 10 products in your offering, and they say that, okay, this product has a sustainable packaging. Would you opt for it? This is 12 rupees instead of 10. And I'm sure there would be. I'm sure.
Just to add to that, in fact, consumers willing to pay, not willing to pay, I mean, end of the day, that's a debate, right? Which will go on. We'll need to make that move and we'll need to make that switch. A lot of consumers like the carry bags that people were talking about, right? So we started pricing them insanely high at our stores. People started to bring their own carry bags. Those who didn't, they didn't want to pay so much. So it's not just, you know, it's a multiplication effect of multiple things, right? We introduced saying, instead of me packing it in the cover that I give it to you, and if you bring your own box, I'll incentivize you. I'll monetize you for you to bring your own box. It's not that companies are only looking at cost. But even when we do that, it's hardly less than 0.5% of the consumers who are actually putting in that effort. There was a question, and I don't remember which panelist raised this, but is the consumer really aware about what's happening to the planet? Is the consumer really aware of sustainability? Sustainability to me, and this is a personal opinion, not to be reflected upon on the panel or the organization that I represent, it's definitely a lot of greenwashing. It's just a buzzword. We are in a capitalistic economy, and until you introduce a line item on sustainability into our own KRAs and the balance sheet, the growth and the progress of this is going to be slow. And let's get real. All of us want it, right? But the amount of education and realization that the consumer has, willing to pay 2 rupees more, willing to let go of 2 rupees on margin, I think all of this is possible. Great example, when something like a force came in and the government said, boss, this is a diktat, you can't do anything about it. Everybody changed, right? COVID happened, a lot of things changed. But look at everything. I mean, at the risk of sounding philosophical, do we really need to order Pentot Cell, shampoos, toothpaste on e-commerce? There's no bloody way that's going to be sustainable at all, at any level. It's easier for you to probably walk till the end of the road and pick that up, right? So a lot of education around what really is the issue that we're trying to address, what is the objective, and how do you go about it is important. I think cost is one thing. Consumer is another thing. Internally, it is there. You know, while I may be sounding very dire in terms of voicing my personal opinion, but all the people that I've interacted with, everybody is interested in doing something and they're willing to take a step forward. But education is probably lacking the most.
Thanks, Pawan. I think with this journey of sustainability has started, I will call Yatra, where, you know, individuals, corporate, government, and I think you see the two people are sitting here, they are working on sustainability companies, and there are the people who are going to convert. So I think this Yatra has started, and hopefully, let's see how these things are going to plan out. So thank you so much. Due to paucity of time, we will take questions offline. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.